Hopefully everybody's doing good this Friday. Yesterday I was thinking the winter was going to come, and now we're back to some clear skies. I like it. All right. We haven't met for a couple weeks just because we had the ethics class last week, and then we had summit. And then, so is there any questions or anything that anyone wants to bring up before we get started? I got a couple things I want to go through today.
Not really.
Not really? Okay. Thanks, Luz.
Mhm.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up a couple things that so every time that I'm doing the compliance side, I always check in with the TCs and Brianna and figure out what problems have been coming up. And one thing that we've noticed, we're getting a lot of paperwork that's being turned in really, really late, and sometimes not even existing. And so I want to show you a couple of reasons and a couple of things that we do just so that you guys can better communicate with the company and make sure you guys stay in compliance. So there's a couple things that I want to show you, and this is the reason. So as a brokerage, we have certain responsibilities, and our responsibilities, let's see here. Go back over here. Whoops. Video. Share my screen. Oh, it's because it's in the advanced mode. Not advanced. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so you should see this Utah administrative rules. And so from a brokerage standpoint, this is how we're governed. This is the rules that we have to follow. So in this section, there's a part for the principal broker, which is going to be Russ, and any associate broker that's with the company. We have a responsibility, and the responsibility here is in K. It says if the principal broker signs an affiliate, associate broker, or branch broker to assist the principal broker in accomplishing the affirmative duties outlined in section 1. So that's everything that's before this. We've talked about this before, so we can go into this, but this is the one I want to bring up right here. Actively supervise any such associate broker, branch broker, remain personally responsible and accountable for accurate supervision of each licensee and unlicensed staff affiliated with the principal broker. And then this last part right here is exercise active and reasonable supervision over the conduct of each licensee and unlicensed staff employed by our affiliate with the principal broker. Okay, so what this is saying is we as a company have a responsibility to monitor and watch over all the agents and their activities. Now, with 450 agents in the company, that becomes really hard to do when everybody's doing their own thing and they're doing transactions every single day. We get lots of transactions that come in. So it's hard for us to really monitor, what you're doing and that you're doing it accurately. So I want you to think of it this way. Brianna sent me a paper giving a good suggestion on it. I thought it was pretty good. But in order for us to really maintain and know what's going on with your transactions, we need you to submit them in dotloop, and it needs to be submitted so that we can review it. Now, every time you put something in dotloop, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're seeing that. It just means that it's being put in there. So the example that Brianna put on here was, I want you to imagine that you take a file, and when you submit it to the office, it's like you taking the paper copy of everything you're doing and you're actually sticking it on Russ's desk and Brianna's desk so that we can look at it. That's when you're submitting it. But when you're not submitting it, what you're doing is basically you got all the file in your hand and you're putting it on a stack of paper on your desk, and you're just leaving it on your desk and it's sitting there. So we're having we've seen some in the last couple of weeks where there's not even a buyer broker assigned yet. We're seeing that deals are starting to close, and then the deal is getting submitted, and it's been on the market for 2 months, trying to get an offer, and now we're finally seeing the paperwork come in right as soon as you submit the offer. So that's the process. So when you go back to the rule, what we're saying is we have to actually supervise and maintain it. Dotloop is our way of maintaining constant eyes on what you guys are doing, and it's actually the easiest way for us to look at contracts, do all of that kind of stuff for you. So I want to walk through Dotloop a little bit. Before I do that, I want to bring back this MLS find sheet that I showed you guys this a couple of weeks ago, but I want you to look at this again. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah, okay, so you should see the Utah real estate fine policy. So we've talked about this before, but the MLS, they want to fine you. It seems like they're looking for ways to help train the members, get us in more compliance. And so they've created these tier policy, tier fine policy with tiers. Tier 1 starts out at $20 fine. Tier 2 is $100 fine. Tier 3, $250 fine. This is for one violation. Tier 4, $500 fine, and Tier 5, $1,000 fine. So there's a lot of things we can do to go get smaller fines, but I want to go to this Tier 5 one real quick, because this is the one where we're seeing some errors, and that could be the first offense, $1,000, second offense, $2,500, next $5,000, all the way up to $15,000. And when you get to $15,000 with the board, then they'll cut your membership off for the rest of that year, because you just got fined $15,000. So obviously we don't want to go there, but this is the one I want you to look at here. Entry of a listing without listing agreement. So we're going on the MLS and we're not getting the right listing agreements, and we're just putting them in there. So about a year ago, we gave everybody access to broker load, which means you can go in and you can access your listings, you can make changes to your listings. Well, the problem that creates is that if you don't have the right documentation on that fine is going to go straight to you. So I want you to make sure you're getting everything submitted. And the best way to do that is you submit it to the company for review, because when we review it, we'll put notes on it that says, hey, we're missing this, and then you can stay in compliance. That's how we're going to maintain the best way for you guys not to get fined. But this first one right here, entry listing without listing agreement, obviously you got to have a listing agreement to do that, but we see that all the time. Use of photos without authorization. I had somebody asked me the other day if they could pull some photos off the HOA sites. The problem that creates for you is if you don't own those photos, then you could easily be fined by putting photos on there. So it was basically a photo of the clubhouse that they wanted to put on their listing. Well, if you didn't actually take that photo, somebody owns that photo, and you could that could be in violation of not having authorization to use those photos. So then the question came up was, what if it's a stock photo on on Google or something, that they're free images? Well, the biggest thing to understand with free images is those usually have stipulations on them that say if they're not for profit, you're not using the image to financially gain from that. Well, if they're putting on your listing to sell your listing, that could be argued that you're going to get some financial gain from that. So you want to look, even the free photos, you want to be careful with actually getting permission to use those for commercial use, which is what we're using them for. So just be really careful with your photos.
So yes,
yeah.
Could that mean that we shouldn't be using photos that we didn't create, that we didn't take, or our person didn't take? It would be safer just to not even use something that probably belongs to someone?
Yep, that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't belong to you, find out who it belongs to and get permission from them. And I've done this on Google before with some of their images, and you can pay for the licensing to be used in your marketing. So, you know, I've done this with like some of my presentation stuff that I wasn't going to change all the time, and there was a specific photo that I really liked, so I just paid for the to own that copyright so that I could use it. But as far as your listings, the only reason I'm seeing this happen is because we're either not wanting to hire the photo people to come take our photos, or we're trying to bypass it and say, oh, this is a really good one, so I'm just going to use this. So you got to be really careful with that. Improper advertising, misuse of MLS information, then obviously, you know, fair housing violations and sending unsolicited emails. All of that is in this tier 5. So I bring this up just because if we don't do it right, we can get in trouble. And as a brokerage, we want to make sure everybody's doing it right. So we have dotloop put in place with a system that will help us, so that we'll make sure that you guys are compliant with this, but so that we also are compliant with it. So now I'm going to go into my dotloop, and I'm going to just show you real quick. I know we've all submitted it. We probably use transaction coordinators, which I highly recommend because they're going to do it right. But if you have questions on it, I want to show you how to actually do this. So if you go into, let's see here, I'm going to go into my dotloop, so you can see just a random file that's in my loop. So when you're submitting, if you look up here at the far right corner, okay, it's going to say submit for review. Okay, this is how you're going to notify the office that you have something for us to look at, or that you want to turn your papers in. So you don't need to wait until everything's in there and you have a perfect file to submit. When you have things in your file and you want to make sure that the office is seeing them, I want you to submit it. I want you to submit to get, and then what happens is the office is going to come through, and you can see on this side, some things are approved, some things are returned. So in this particular case, they'll write a note that says incorrect offer reference date, returned. Okay, well, that's something that I can deal with and that I can fix through the process, as long as I'm aware of that. So what I find is that most frustration for agents is they're now at the closing table and they're trying to get things done. And we're saying, okay, for the office, we need 4 or 5 signatures. And the agent's going, well, I don't want to ask them. We just closed and we just signed it, and I don't want to have to deal with it. Well, if you're aware of this before you go sign, you could print all these off, take them to the closing table and say, hey, we're just trying to get the files accurate and everything fixed. These are things we need to make sure that happen, and have them sign it while they're signing the other 500 documents to buy the house. They're not going to have a problem with it. But if they've signed it, now they own the house, and now we're coming back to you saying, hey, we need you to fix this addendum, and you're saying, but it's already closed. Well, that's where the frustration comes in. So what I want to show
Jason,
you.
can I ask a question really quickly about this? How
Yeah.
often should we submit our loops? Because like usually I do it right after I go under contract, but I may have then, you know, sent out other things for the if I'm on the buy side, the buyer to sign, and those haven't come back in. But how often should we, through like we get some more addendums in, but it, you know, is there something that you think we should do? How often? Or
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it. I mean, I guess the wrong answer to it would be waiting till the very end and submitting everything at once. What happens is, let's say that you just have 1 document that you want reviewed, and you're still got 4 more coming in. You know, there's nothing wrong with sending it in to get that one reviewed. I would suggest that anytime you have some of the major documents being finished, that you submit those. You know, I mean, I would probably submit like on this one, the buyer documents, my buyer due diligence, receipt, affiliate, wire fraud. Like I probably just wait till all of those have got signed, because maybe one of them's been returned, but the other ones haven't. So it's not that you have to do it at a specific time. I would just suggest that you don't wait until you get the whole file completed. Sometimes that's the confusion is, I need to wait till the file's complete, because if I turn this one in and I don't have the affiliate business one signed, then they're going to mark it as returned and flag it because it's not signed. Well, that's just us noting the file. It's not like the interesting thing is some agents kind of look at it as like, oh, I failed. I've got these notes on my file. And really all it is we have a working file. We're working through it. You're going to have notes. We're going to remove the notes. You're going to have returns. You're going to have problems that you have to fix. And sometimes they're going to be solved. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yes, it does. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest keys that we have. In fact, I think Brianna might be on. Is there a specific thing on that, Brianna, that you might add to? Does it really matter when, as long as they're getting it done? I don't know if she's on. She did give me a note in the thing, but either way.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Yes, you are exactly right. There's no specific time. And one thing but just if you have a buyer, please submit before you make earnest money requests. We can't deposit earnest money until the contract's in our system and has been reviewed. So anytime you go in or out of contract with a buyer, if you have a listing, anytime you have an active listing, I would just encourage you to submit as often as possible so that we're seeing all the newest paperwork. But like Jason said, one thing I wanted to mention, sorry, I'm just talking a lot, is those notes are not the office yelling at you. We know that the files are always in progress and they're not going to be perfect every time you submit. Those notes are for you so the agents can see everything at a glance that might be needed, but it's also for office staff so that the next time an office member gets into the loop, they know what they need to look for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks for chiming in on that. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the biggest key with that. So Chris, hopefully that helps you and helps with everybody. Just keep submitting it and then we'll just work through the file. It's easier to work through the file as you're going through it than it is once you're closed or the day of closing. So that's one thing that we're seeing an awful lot of, is that it's like a last minute thing. There should be no reason you couldn't have everything cleared before you went to your settlement, so that when you went to the settlement, you could come back and know that when the check comes in, everything is ready to go and you're going to get paid on time and you don't have to go back looking for people to sign papers. Everything could be cleared. But if it's not submitted and then it's submitted wrong at the last minute or after it's closed, then when we request you to go find some signatures, that's when the problems come, because agents are like, well, that's silly, why would I need to fix that? Well, that's exactly why submitting often. So let's go back up to this submitting real quick. So when you submit, you're going to come up here in the top right corner, you're going to click the button submit. If you have not submitted your loop before, it's going to actually come up with some questions that you have to answer. So it's going to be some basic information about your listing that you can enter in there. Once you've entered it in there and it's submitted to the office, you won't have to do that again. So in this particular case, this loop that I've already sent it in, it's actually a file that's closed before. So when I click submit, it's only going to come up with these submit for review sections. On the left side is going to be every folder that you created. So if I created, like here, I've created an offer folder, CC&Rs, folder, under contract financials. So everything in that is going to be the folders that I've created in there. And then on the right side is going to say where I want this to be sent. And this is important because there's different people that will look at your file and do different things. So if I come over here and I say, okay, we're going to submit the financials for review, and I'm going to click on the right side, it's going to give me a list of things that I want to be done. Okay, so we'll just go through these real quick so you see them. Active listing, when you have an active listing agreement, especially if the office needs to activate the listing, then you're going to click review active listings. So in this particular case, you put your ERS in there and your listing input form. If I submit it to the active listing, it's going to go to the right person who can get it on the MLS for you as soon as, or at least check it, because you can put it on the MLS yourself, but they can check it. Cancellation of earnest money. So if you've canceled your transaction and you want the earnest money to be released, that's who you're going to submit it to, the cancellation of earnest money. Cancellation earnest money transfer. Let's say that you have a property that fell out, but you have another property you want to go immediately into, and so you want to move that earnest money somewhere else, then you would send it there. Expired listing, seller buyer under contract. This is if you have anything, let's see, what is it? Anytime you have any new accepted contracts, you're going to put it in there. If you have any changes on the MLS that you need, any updating, price changes, contact information, any of that stuff you want reviewed, that goes in there. Under contract, earnest money receipt, release, and then withdrawn. So these are different ones. So each one's going to go to somewhere different. So just so you guys are aware, if you're doing active listing, you're doing expired listing, and you're doing the withdrawn, that's going to go to Marissa. And if you're doing cancellation, earnest money release, under contract, earnest money release, seller buyer under contract, that's going to go to Ella, myself, Brianna, and then if it's financials, it goes to Julie. So you can see that there's different places it needs to go. Now, don't get too caught up on where it needs to go, because they know where it needs to go. So if it goes to the wrong person, it's not going to mess up your file. However, knowing that it goes to different people, you can help them out by getting it to the right place. So any questions on that? Okay, so really just when it comes down to it, what we're trying to look at here is, in order to be compliant for the principal broker, for us and for us as a company, we need to be monitoring your transactions and what you're going through there. This is a really good resource, a filing cabinet for everything that you need for your transactions. Anything you want to remember for a transaction, I would put it into your loop, and then just make sure that you're submitting it, because it goes back to Brianna's example that that I gave you at the very start, which basically says, if you have it in dot loop, it's like you have a big stack of papers on your desk. But as soon as you submit it to the office, it's like you're taking that stack of paper and you're actually moving it in to the office, and you're giving it to us so we can look at it, and then we can work together on that. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions on submitting and making sure you're compliant with all of your documents? And the last thing I just want to bring up one more time is, don't be writing offers without a written buyer broker, or putting it on the MLS without an signed exclusive right to sell. We're seeing it a lot with buyers. We're writing offers, and then, hey, there never was a buyer broker that was signed. This is a violation of the Utah, your licensing, not just the MLS. You've got to establish agency. So this is how we do that. If you have questions, you can reach out to either us or I, and we can definitely help you with that. So any questions on this or anything else that you guys want me to cover today?
I was just going to say, with regards to the,
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it really makes it easier to get a buyer broker signed when you explain about the agency and that it is required by our license to have this before we go look at houses. And it makes it so much easier to get one signed. Since I've been doing that, I don't have a problem getting it signed before we go look. It makes sense to them.
No. And I think when you understand how to explain it, then it's super easy to do. I think when we don't understand how to explain it, that's where it becomes difficult. Jeanette, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about it now, or if if that's okay. It's just about a listing that I'm going to get and a contract. I don't know if you want me.
Sure,
Can
we
I
can,
ask them?
let's-
Okay.
no, let's go ahead and
No,
talk about it
we
now.
can
I don't
all
have
in together.
Yeah, no, this will be fun. If anyone needs to jump off, that's all I have today. So if you need to jump off, that's fine. But yeah, go ahead, Janet. We'll talk about
So I
your
have a listing I'm going to take. My client is going out of the country and she wants to get the contracts, kind of signed, but she doesn't want to put on the MLS. So I know that we can sign the contract, we can do the exclusion, whatever. But what she's also saying too, and I just wanted to know how to be in compliant with this. She's saying, what if somebody were to, like her son was to find someone who might want to put an offer on the home? Do we have to put it on the MLS? I guess is my long question, before we can accept offers. If we have that, the exclusion is going to say we're going to put the MLS when we're ready to market it.
Right.
So is it best to get the listing agreement signed now and do the exclusion form, or to post date the listing agreement for when she gets back? I'm just not sure what to do in the event, we get this crazy offer, someone finds out about our house, for sale, and they want to put an offer on it. I don't know what the compliant thing to do is with that.
Yeah, so my suggestion is you get the exclusive right to sell and you get the notice of exclusive listing that you're not putting it on the MLS. And if an offer comes in and you're not marketing for it, that doesn't mean you can't accept that offer and still move forward. You just can't publicly market it. So the only challenge would be, you said that the son might find somebody. If the son is starting to market it out there, I think there could be a challenge with him marketing it, but I don't know about, maybe Russ, you can chime in on whether the son markets it. I think that goes under, you can't market it at all, but I would suggest you get it signed first and then do the notice of exclusive. And then if it comes in, then that's great.
Well, the neighbors, the neighbors are already talking there. She's already let people know that she's going to list her home, type of thing. So that's where,
I don't think there's no problem with them marketing their own property. Yeah. I think the only problem is if you got somebody else putting it on Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I told her not to do that, and I haven't shared the picture. I did send her a video and she said, because we got pictures already. She says, can I share that with family and friends? And I said, no, you can't share that with anybody. And then I didn't give her any individual pictures. I just wanted her to be able to approve the pictures that type of thing. So one more question that goes with that is, I do not have the listing yet. And a few weeks ago, she was talking to me about listing it. And I had mentioned to some clients who are looking for a home that there could be a possible listing coming up that might meet their search criteria. I didn't give them the address or anything. Is that illegal to do where I don't have the listing? Like I don't have any paperwork signed?
No, you're just fine. The problem, the clear cooperation is the issue that we're dealing with. And that's when you have a signed listing agreement and you are out marketing the property for them. The key that you can't be out there putting properties on the or not on the MLS, but on like KSL and saying, I have this property. But if I'm talking to friends and family and say, hey, I've got a listing that's possibly coming up here and I don't have any listing agreements, no, that's not what clear cooperation is referring to.
Okay. So it's best for us just to get the agreement signed. So in the event that somebody, we can go ahead and sell that if that possibility comes up before she gets back.
Yeah, well, and it also protects you, because if you don't sign an agreement and then the neighbor brings an offer in and says, hey, we can take care of this on our own, let's save the commissions, that cuts you out of it. And without a signed listing agreement, you have no way of getting anything from that.
Okay, perfect. You answered the question. Thank you.
No
Hey,
problem.
thanks, Jeanette, for asking that, because I've had some of the same things. Can I ask one clarifying question? Because I had this with my last listing, so it's okay for them to, tell their neighbors and friends, they just can't post anything. I just don't know how to tell them, you can't, how do we tell them not to market it but they still can tell their friends and neighbors or whatever, because I've had that happen too, where they've, told their family, told their the friends, their neighbors around before we've actually put it on the MLS.
So, Russ, maybe you can chime in on this one. This is just my thoughts on it, is if you're giving them marketing materials and they're using it for their friends and family and you're linked to what they're doing, that's where the challenge comes in. If they're just going out and doing their own marketing, I mean, they own their house. They can market their house any way they want to do it. And if they came back and said, hey, you're marketing this property without, and you had no connection with that, like where Jeanette said, I gave them a video and now all of a sudden they're posting the video. And then they come back and say, who made the video? And they say, well, the agent did. Well, then Jeanette's going to have a problem with that because she made that video. But if your client goes out and takes pictures of their house and they take a video of their house and they post it on something saying, hey, we're going to sell our house soon. And as an agent, you have nothing really to do with that. There's nothing they can really come at you for because you're not marketing that. But that, Russ, do you think of anything different, or is that?
No, I would agree. I think as long as it's just, if they were telling people, hey, we're going to be selling our house, there's no issue with that. It's just exactly what Jason said. Just if it somehow could tie back to you at all, then that would be an issue.
Perfect. That makes great sense.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the fall while it lasts. Snow will be coming soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.